the El Laguito factory, and the man often accredited with blending Cohiba. Now, we all know from watching the Cohiba episode on the Dr. Joe show that he did not, in fact, create the original Cohiba blend. He probably did create the Siglo Linea 1492 blend. Okay, but we'll talk more about that when we get to Siglo. Now, he's in an interview with Cigar Aficionado, and they're talking all about Cohiba, and Cigar Aficionado is calling him the man who made Cohiba and all that, so they're fucking wrong right away right there, because he wasn't. And it was Eduardo Rivera. And, you know, further along in the review, they start talking about Trinidad. And Avelino Lara goes on to say that, you know, when they're talking about Cohiba, how the leaves are the finest of the fine, he actually goes on to say that there is one cigar that is even more special than Cohiba. I'm going to talk about it right now. Most people aren't even aware of its existence. This was like right around the cusp of its birth. And he goes on to say Cohiba is the finest of the fine, but Trinidad is the finest of the finest of the fine. The selection de la selección. The leaves selected from the best selection. And that Trinidad was only handed out by Fidel Castro. Right out of Avelino Lara's mouth. Now, like I said, this probably would have just been laughed off and ignored, except the guy was the former head of El Laguito factory. He worked there for decades. You know, and even though he didn't create the original Cohiba blend, he did a lot of wonderful things and did make a lot of wonderful cigars, and the man does know his shit. Now, why would he say something like that? Well, we got into the whole thing when we did the Cohiba episode, but of course, right away, the statements were rebuffed by Adriano Martinez, who is a former executive of Habanos S.A., and by Fidel Castro himself, both in an interview with Cigar Aficionado and in his autobiography, My Life. Now, it's just very odd to me. Now, of course, right after Castro said that and wrote that, people within the cigar community just kind of shut it off. A lot of people, you'll even see on certain websites, like there's one website where it talks about Cohiba, it talks about Trinidad rather, and it says Fidel Castro did not hand out Trinidads, you know. But why do we assume that? Just because Castro said it? I mean, the fact of the matter is, Avelino Lara was not senile, and he certainly wasn't at the time of the interview, at the time he made that statement. I can't really think of many reasons that he would say such a thing, except for the fact that maybe he was wronged and he wanted to cause some sort of, you know, I don't know, confusion, or it doesn't even make sense. Like, what would he get out of doing that? Piss Castro off? You know? I mean, if he said it and it was true, and then you have these two guys saying, no, 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 that's not true, that's not true, that would make sense, because they would be saying that because they would want to defend their flagship brand, the brand that brings in the most dough, the most money per capita per cigar sold. You know, even though it's not the highest selling brand, it almost makes the most money. So, it's really an interesting thing. One can't just assume, what I'm trying to say is, one can't just assume that it's not true just because Castro said, no, he's wrong, that's not true. The guy was on the inside. He was practically Castro's right-hand man. He even said in that same interview that he would have the Trinidads made and they were Castro's cigar and the cigar he handed out, and he would literally sleep with the cigars to protect them from being tampered with. This is all about Trinidad. All the things that people say today about Cohiba, he was saying in this interview about Trinidad. But Castro refuted the statement, saying, no, that's not true. I never handed out Trinidad's. I don't need... He even said in his... he even said, Castro even went as far to say, is I don't even know about Trinidad. I'm not even really very familiar with the cigar. Now, it was a diplomatic gift, whether he handed them out or not. You know, you're not familiar with a cigar that was created at the same time as Cohiba in the same factory when you were there doing all this. You're not familiar with it? Come on. Come on. Something's a little fishy here. Now, I don't believe it just because Castro says it, just like a lot of people won't believe it just because Avelino Lara says it. You know, it's something that may never be settled. Maybe Castro will say something on his deathbed. Avelino Lara can't say anything anymore because he died, so we'll never get the, you know, the real side out of him. It just really bugs me. Why would he say such a thing? You know? He had a bad falling out maybe, which I don't think he did. There was never anything about that, you know. And he just wanted to ruin the reputation of Cohiba, or try to, you know, tarnish the reputation of Cohiba by throwing some shit in the mix. That doesn't make much sense. That doesn't make much sense at all. You know. Anyway, we talked more about that in the Cohiba episode we did in the past. Very interesting subject. Do watch that if you haven't seen it, because there's a lot more than that when it comes to Cohiba. Very mysterious brand right there. So, you know, I'm going to smoke this down, get into our last third, and maybe pop out a few viewer emails, and then wrap it up, because we got another cigar to smoke soon. Getting a little deeper now. You know, a little oaky, some more coffee flavors, deepening up, a little more leather, a little more spice. It's a very nice cigar. If I had to use one word to describe the cigar, I'd call it elegant. It's very smooth, you know, it's got this beautiful, sweet floral aroma. It's got very sophisticated flavors, you know. Yeah, it's just a very elegant cigar. Very elegant cigar, very mellow blend. You know, nothing that could be considered offensive at all. You know, as far as you know, no burning, no irritation. As I can just breathe the stuff right in, and it's just great. It's just great. Whatever you want to say, whichever one you want to say is better. So far, this is fantastic. A little bit of a twang starting to develop. Yeah, comes along later than sooner in certain cigars, but here it is. A little bit of that Cuban twang coming out. Very, very, very nice. Very, very nice. All right, let me smoke a little, and we'll come back with our last third, our second third review, and smoke the last third of a cigar, and do a few viewer emails. Now, this is really good, man. This is really good. Because here's a cigar that gives you the best of both worlds. And this is something I was just thinking as I was starting to get into this last third here. Our first third was very elegant, very mellow. The second third, coming through, deepens up a bit, some more coffee notes, a little more leather, becomes really vegetal, you know, because there's this low level of salt, and it's not weedy, it's not earthy, it's not woody, there's a little bit of cedar. It's got this vegetal type base to it. Pretty much all the way through the second third. A little bit of pepper here and there. And just as I started getting to the point where it was like, okay, you know, that's a good flavor, very nice, but I've had enough of that. Bang! It just, what a change. The change from the first third to the second third wasn't so noticeable. But coming into the last third now, I took this one puff and this really deep, twangy note came out. And I was like, oh, there it is, man. There it is. And now it's just sitting there like that. It's become a lot more intense, a lot sharper, you know. The second third acquired depth, and now coming into the last third, real increase in height as far as with that twangy note. And I'll let you know all about that once we get to the end of our last third. But I actually made a little bit of an error. While I was just doing the first third review, I started talking more about the second third than the first third, but I don't know where my head was at. But this is just fantastic. Really fantastic, you know. Really like the first half of the cigar. Like I said, very mellow, very elegant. And now that I'm ready for some strength and I'm ready to, like, you know, set in, finish up, and feel good, bang, turns around right into that lace. You could almost put a line on the cigar. I mean, I'm telling you, like right there, completely turned around. Completely turned around. And my ash hadn't fallen off at that point or anything. I mean, this was a pure, straight out of the tobacco changing flavor. Really great. Spice picking up, black pepper, leather, deeper coffee notes, a little more espresso-ish. Wow. Wow. Nice. Very nice. You gotta be careful, it's picking up some heat too now. But that is good, man. That is good. Great construction on this cigar. So, a few viewer emails. But I hope you all see, but this, now it's in my head and it's bothering me, what I mean by that whole thing. If you're familiar with it, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. But, you know, the whole thing where Avelino Lara goes in a cigar interview, Cigar Aficionado interview, and says Trinidad is the better blend, Trinidad is the finer leaves, Trinidad is the cigar that Castro handed out. And then Castro says, no it isn't, none of that's true. Why the fuck would Avelino Lara do that? You know, why would you walk into a Cigar Aficionado? What is he, a liar? He goes in there and just starts lying? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't know. It's just very fucking weird. You know? Let's do some viewer emails. And we are puffing away on our last third. Delicious. Delicious. Well, you know what? I'll tell you about the flavor when we cover our last third. Enough of that for now. Let's do a few quick viewer comments, emails, etc. We'll do a few in this episode, and then we'll do a few in the Siglo 6 episode, so they're not all jammed together. Because remember, I'm going to finish this up, do our final rating, last third, etc. Take about an hour break, let my palate chill out, and then we're going to go right into the Cohiba Siglo 6 for episode 31. So that will be a lot of fun. I'm just going to go down the line here. Nick Russell. I had one of these recently, talking about the Partagas Lusitaneous. Had one of these recently, and on the pre-draw, it tasted like Christmas cake. Heaps of nutmeg after lighting, smooth as silk. Taco Town, Tatuar, love the music and the photos. Love the music to the photos, Joe. Oh, haha, I flattered myself and thought he said and the photos. Well, I hope you like the photos too. At least you like the music. Believe it or not, it's really tough finding anything decent as far as free music online goes. You know what? If anybody out there has any music that they make themselves or knows of anywhere, specific song, please. Don't just send me to a site with 8,000 songs. Anywhere to get a good song for a track for any of my little photo shoot things. I love finding songs like that. Some of the free stuff I get is great, but it takes a lot of time sifting through a lot of crap. And I don't mean it's subjective, you know, some people like this music. I'm saying that some of the stuff is music and some of it is a bunch of fucking noise, okay? There's just loads of this. And if you like that kind of stuff, God bless you, nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't go with what I'm doing. All that experimental fucking bing bang sound of rivets falling in a fucking bucket and who knows what else. So yeah, it's tough finding some decent tracks. Even the ones I use, I'm not particularly in love with. They're just the best of a bad situation. Yeah, so that's that. Uh-oh, better take off my band. There we go. So yeah, he liked the Lusitanias, and I agree. I don't know about exactly like a Christmas cake, but you know, I get what you're saying. You're not really saying Christmas cake. You're saying like, you know, yeah, a lot of sweet notes, a lot of different spices like baking spices, the smell of baking bread when you light the cigar. Absolutely delicious. And in particular, that box that we had, which I forget already, was LOM. Actually, he's right here. The next comment, Hiroshiro. LOM has been great for 2013. Now, if you haven't been watching my other videos and you don't know anything about the viewers whose comments I often read, this guy knows his cigars inside out. He's a big collector. He knows his fucking Cuban cigars. So, I'm glad he's agreeing with me. LOM, as far as I am concerned, that's the only box that I got from LOM so far. You know, I hadn't, before I started doing this again, I took about a year off and hadn't gotten any boxes because of financial situations. So I'm finally just getting back into the groove where I'm ordering boxes, and that one came in from LOM, and it was absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. So here I have somebody else who really knows his shit agreeing that that factory is great in 2013. Now, what does that mean for us? Does that mean, wow, look at the clouds of smoke coming off of this thing. Amazing flavor right now. Unbelievable. Does that mean we should only be looking, you know, searching for boxes from LOM or for 2013 or even up into 2014? Not really. Because number one, in 2014, it may have changed. LOM might not be the same factory, or they may not be using LOM at all. You know, you have to figure those things out. Number two, of course, only certain cigars are going to be made at LOM. Now, you can kind of do your, if you do your homework and you know what's what, you'll say to yourself, well, LOM must mean El Rey del Mundo. Because if Partagas Lusitanias are coming there, since the Partagas factory was closed, and production of Partagas and associated brands that were also at the Partagas factory, Bolivar, La Gloria Cubana, went to El Rey del Mundo, then LOM must be El Rey del Mundo. So that may mean you want to buy some of those brands, and maybe those will be from LOM, or, you know, or maybe not. Maybe they're using, nobody's really figured it out. It's possible that they are making El Rey del Mundo for 2013 and Partagas for 2013 in the same factory, but Partagas uses LOM and El Rey del Mundo uses OML. I mean, you know, they may switch things up. They don't want people, you know, doing that. As far as, it's such a weird long story about how it all happened, and we should get into that because it's interesting. But, you know, factory hunting, factory shopping, buying cigars only from specific factories. And they want to deter people from doing that because some people get so into it and so serious about it, and make other people feel that it's such a serious big deal that it puts a damper on cigars that don't come from those factories that people are saying are great. Which means a whole bunch of fucking cigars just sitting there that nobody wants. Look what happened with the cigars from the years of 99, 2000, 2001, when cigars weren't, you know, at their best. A lot of plugged, overfilled, underfilled, badly blended cigars. And when you go to sites that have, you know, aged cigar sections, they still have a whole bunch of fucking boxes from 2000 that nobody wants. You know, so they don't want people doing that. So they've made it tricky. And there were several different methods before the one that's in place now that they used. Unfortunately, being as smart as us cigar smokers are, those codes were broken. Those cryptographic codes were broken, and people found out what meant what. So they finally put one in place that seems to be totally fucking random, generated by some computer somewhere. You know, the Habanos mother brain. So, long story short, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would just buy the brands you like and hope you get something good. For the most part, for the last decade, 2004 and up, cigars have been very, very good. Very, very good. Some years a little better than others, but for the most part, very good. 2013 seems like a great year. 2012, I personally love 2008, 2009. I think those are great years. I think 2011, 2012 were great years. 2010 was fine too. Not, you know, just a little off in some areas for me. But, you know, good stuff. Anyway, let's get past that. Buy the brands you like. That's the point. And if you really are hunting for a specific year, you can always ask your vendor. You know, I always ask when I'm ordering stuff from Finest Cuban Cigars. I say, listen, please send me stuff, if you can, from the brands I want that has at least a little over a year on it. I try not to get too picky, too specific, you know, because they probably just won't, you know, say, oh, we don't have it, you know, like, they may not. You don't want to fuck yourself. You don't want to say, well, I want party gifts, but I only want LOM 2013. I tell you, well, we don't have any, you know. Say, I want some with at least a little over a year on it, you know. I really don't feel like waiting for cigars to get out of their sick period. And for the most part, they oblige. I get cigars with a year, or I get cigars like this one. Oh, I brought it upstairs, sorry, from 2011, you know. So they do that for me. But in the Cohiba case, you'll see they're a little younger. Much more popular cigar, moves a lot faster, and they had what they had, so they sent it to me. I'm not upset. Say goodnight, Max.